Okay, good afternoon, or good whatever, from wherever you're watching this, and or if you're watching this at some other time other than when we're recording it. Hope you're having a good day so far. This is the Research and Technology webinar, library research webinar for the Nancy Thompson Library/Learning Commons. I'm going to be giving this webinar for the next hour. If anybody signs in the next couple minutes, there should be a chat window. If you hover your mouse over the middle bottom of the screen, you should be able to access the chat window, and hopefully you can hear and or see me correctly. So welcome. I'm going to pop over to this next slide and give you my contact information. Okay, let me get rid of this. Okay. So this is my contact information. If you feel like you're struggling, if you need any kind of extra help with your research, please feel free to contact me. My name is Craig Anderson. I'm one of the many helpful and enthusiastic librarians here at the Nancy Thompson Library Learning Commons at Kean University. I have my email address there, cjanders@kean.edu. My office phone number is area code 908-737-4602, and I am @LibraryGuy on Twitter. You don't have to add me on Twitter. I won't be heartbroken. Feel free to stalk me on Facebook at your own risk. I'm a huge nerd, so there's a lot of nerd content on my Facebook page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a little bit of everything on the library homepage here. This is the library homepage. Hopefully this is showing up on your screen now. This has been modified fairly recently. So one of the things that we have now, well, I'm going to at first show you something called Ask a Librarian. If you hover your mouse, there's a tab here that says Ask a Librarian. When you click on that, that will take you to something called Lib Answers. Lib Answers is our frequently asked questions and our knowledge base. We, the librarians, have put a bunch of question and answer pairs into Lib Answers. So if you have a question about the library or the Library Learning Commons services in particular, you can go to Lib Answers. This has a lot of these pre-entered questions and answers here. So if your question is something that we get asked a lot, something that's a frequently asked question, it will show up under Lib Answers here. But you can also use this to type out a question if you have a reference question, something that wouldn't necessarily show up in Lib Answers. You can also start typing your question here. If Lib Answers doesn't recognize your question, it will prompt you for an email address, and then you will enter your question, and then it will send that question to one of our librarians here. We have librarians that monitor Lib Answers throughout the day. So anytime we see a new question come up, we get excited because we're weird, and then we can answer that question and send the response back to your email address. In that same vein, there are all these ways on the side here that you can call the reference desk during our regular hours. There's an email form. You can even send us a text message if you're out in the wilderness somewhere and you can't get near a library in time. So there's all sorts of ways to contact a librarian if you feel like you need any kind of extra help. And I always say never be intimidated to contact a librarian if you need extra help. Librarians are like most people. We're always looking for any cheap excuse to prove how smart we are. So if there are no questions, I'm going to show you, again, on the Nancy Thompson Library Learning Commons homepage right here, there's this new thing called WorldCat Discovery. It's relatively new. It's new for us anyway. And what WorldCat Discovery is meant to do, it's meant to be a way that you can search for books, articles, videos, etc. You don't have to go to all these different places to search for a single object or item. You can go to any one of these. So if we're searching for a book, we can go to books here, or articles, or if we just want to search for everything. It's called WorldCat Discovery. That should probably be short for World Catalog. Librarians usually like to abbreviate the word catalog to just cat because most of us are crazy cat ladies. I have 5. So I'm going to do a search here for, there's a Shakespeare play called The Merry Wives of Windsor. I don't know how familiar you are with Shakespeare plays, but that's what I'm going to do a search for here. And I'm just searching under everything, not only books. When it does the search, it's going to give preference to the book. So if there's a book that we own here in this library, it's going to bring that up first. So here it is, by William Shakespeare, The Merry Wives of Windsor, also Giorgio Melchiori, or Melchiori Giorgio. He might be an editor or something like that. So this is a book that we have here in our library. It's available in the Nancy Thompson Library Media Collection, main collection rather. It gives this book a call number. The call number, this is the Library of Congress call number system. It's cataloged under PR, which is like English, specifically British Isles literature. So that would be on the 3rd floor. For right now, our books, anything that starts with A through HM 101 is going to be on the 2nd floor. HM 104 to Z is going to be on the 3rd floor, so PR falls directly in that. So that would be up on the 3rd floor, and you would be able to just get that from the 3rd floor and check it out down on the 1st floor. Also, when we do a search for The Merry Wives of Windsor, it's coming up with a number of videos here. If we go to any of these videos, it will take us to a page where we can view that video, just kind of streaming online. This is taking a rather long time to come up, so I won't spend too much time on it. So here's The Merry Wives of Windsor, which we get from the BBC Shakespeare plays, and we could watch this video here like this. I'm not going to watch this whole video right now because obviously I don't have the broadcast rights to this video. So I'm just going to close this window. So sometimes when you do a search in the WorldCat catalog, you will also see videos as well as articles will be here. Again, it is going to give preference to things that we have here in our library, but you will also see things that are available in other libraries at some point. And things that are available in other libraries, it will usually give you the option, I'm not seeing anything here, it will usually give you the option to order those things through interlibrary loan. Interlibrary loan is a process through which we can order things from other libraries. If there's an item that you want that we don't have, and let me just go back a minute here. I'm going to go back to the Library Learning Commons homepage. Under Services on the homepage, you can also get to interlibrary loan that way. It's a program through which we can order things from other libraries and have them sent here. So basically the way that it works is if there's an item that we don't have, we might wind up getting that item from Montclair or William Patterson or Drew University, some other institution, and they will send that item to us basically with the understanding that at some point down the road there's going to be a Montclair student that's going to want something that only Kane has. So it creates like a free trade agreement between libraries, if you will. The downside to interlibrary loan is that it can sometimes take a couple weeks for the item to get here, so it's not the thing to use if it's the night before the paper's due and you're just starting it then. But if you have enough advance notice, it can sometimes be very helpful. It can be a lifesaver. So that's the WorldCat Discovery. That's the book catalog, and it can also search for other things. As I said before, it can search for articles as well, but most of the searching for articles are going to come from the databases A to Z. So I just want to talk about databases A to Z for a minute. Usually when you're doing scholarly research, that's going to come from this list of databases here. So I'm going to click on databases A to Z, and that was just underneath the WorldCat Discovery search bar. So this is a list of all of the databases that Kane subscribes to. And the backstory behind this, once upon a time, there used to be a set of books called The Reader's Guide to Periodical Literature, and I have a picture of it here. The Reader's Guide to Periodical Literature was these ugly green books that every library seemed to have, and if you wanted to find an article, you would have to research it in this series of books, and this books would tell you what articles were available on that particular topic. And then you would go deal with the angry serials librarian in the back of the library. They would throw periodicals at you until you went away. And then you would do research on all those topics. You would make photocopies, you would copy down the articles, etc. So the good news is you don't have to do any of this. The only reason I mention this at all is because I am exactly that petty and bitter that this is what I had to use when I was still going to college. So instead, through the magic of the internet, we have these 251 databases here. All of these databases are provided by different vendors and companies to give you access to articles in an online format. And you can see them here. As I said, there's 251 of them. They're on a number of different subjects. If you happen to have a favorite database and you know the name of that database, you can go directly to it here through this alphabetical list. Or you can, there's a pull-down menu here, you can search by subject. So if you want only the databases that show you about literary criticism, there's 19 of those. Only the databases on the performing arts, there's 11 of those. Sociology, psychology, education is a popular one, there's 21 of those. Right now, for this particular webinar, I'm just going to go to Academic Search Premier. That's one of the databases through the Ebsco host. Librarians like to call Ebsco host a database. It's actually a host of databases. That's why they call it Ebsco host. I like to think of Ebsco as a giant corporate empire. They've been buying up these lesser databases in their bid for global domination. There's a funny story associated with that. That's only funny if you're a librarian over 35, so I'm going to skip that for right now. So now I just went to the Academic Search Premier database. The Academic Search Premier is only one of the many databases that are available through the Ebsco host family of databases. But Academic Search Premier is a multidisciplinary database, so it covers a little bit of everything. No matter what your topic is, there's a good chance there will be something available in Academic Search Premier. And then if you want to stick with the Ebsco host databases, there's always Choose databases over here that will allow you to choose from all of these different databases. There's Artful Text, there's CINAHL, which is a nursing database. It's an excellent nursing database. ERIC is probably the best educational database that we have for you education majors. There's Humanities International. Medline, of course, is another great medical database. MLA, International Bibliography, is a great English database. And then we have all of these psych databases here as well, which are great. SocIndex is good for sociology and the social sciences. And then SportDiscus is an excellent database for sports and sports medicine, but also like physical education and fitness. As I said before, I'm just going to stick with the Academic Search Premier database. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to start a search here. Depending on what class you're taking, what the objective is for your assignment, you might be called upon to limit your search to, say, a particular date range, maybe. You might want to limit your search results to only articles published within the last 5 years or the last 10 years. There's another option down here on the bottom, if you can see where I'm kind of circling my mouse, for only scholarly peer-reviewed journals. Now, when we do research, a lot of times we talk about articles that are found in magazines and newspapers and sometimes something called trade publications, which is like a magazine, but it's for a particular profession or workplace. But then we have these scholarly peer-reviewed journals. The scholarly peer-reviewed journals are these professional publications, these academic publications, I should say, and they're designed to be the authority on whatever subject they're about. So if you're looking through a peer-reviewed journal on psychology, the reason it's called peer-reviewed is because before any of those articles are published in that particular journal, they'll first be analyzed by other experts in that particular field, in that case, psychology. So If you're publishing a psychology article in a peer-reviewed journal, they're going to get other psychologists to go through that article with a fine-tooth comb, make sure that you cited all your sources properly, make sure that all the conclusions that you came to stem from the data in the article, and they're going to make sure that that article is not biased in any way. So usually when you're doing scholarly academic research, it's a great idea to limit yourself to only these scholarly peer-reviewed journals. So I'm going to go back up here to the search bar, and I'm going to do a Shakespeare search again, because you might have noticed that I'm a Shakespeare nerd at this point. So I am going to search for The Merry Wives of Windsor again, and it's already suggesting to me that I might be looking for The Merry Wives of Windsor, but I want to do a few special things in this search, so I'm going to ignore their suggestions for right now. And so what I've done here, the databases, especially the Ebsco databases, they don't do as well with a natural language search. I mean, they do okay with a natural language search. They do so much better with what's called a Boolean search. It mentions Boolean phrasing over here. This was designed by a guy named Boole, George Boole. He was a mathematician, so sometimes you start looking like math problems when we get super into them. So what Boolean searching is, it's mostly searching according to like different keywords and phrases, usually separated by the word "and," as we have here. What I've done in this case is I've typed out Merry Wives of Windsor. I could have put the in there, but I like to omit the. And I put that in quotation marks. Now, the reason I put this phrase in quotation marks is because I only want results that have those 4 words in that order. I'm not interested in an article that has like Merry in one paragraph and Wives in another paragraph and Windsor somewhere else. Oh, and I spelled Windsor incorrectly. So I want it only when it's those 4 words in that order. There's another Shakespeare play called As You Like It. I once taught a Shakespeare class in which somebody was searching for As You Like It, and they neglected to put that in quotes. So they found every article that had the words as you like and it somewhere in that article. So they basically found every article ever. So that's what we kind of want to avoid. We want to put in quotes any multi-word phrase, a 2-word phrase, a 3-word phrase, a 15-word phrase. So I want to search for examples of feminism in The Merry Wives of Windsor. So I put Merry Wives of Windsor in quotes, and with the word feminism, I did something called truncation. Truncation is when you cut the ending of a word off and replace it with a symbol. The symbol that seems to work in 99% of the databases that we have is the asterisk. So that's this little star symbol here. It's usually over the 8 key on your keyboard. So I just put the first part of the word feminism and put the asterisk, so féminin. Now what this will do is it will search for any word that starts with F-E-M-I-N-I, etc. So it will find not only the word feminism, but also feminist, feminists, plural, feminine even. So anytime you have a word that has a lot of different variations, and you want to account for all of those variations, because the more times that word or phrase is mentioned in the article, the closer it's going to come to the top of the list when you get your search results. Oh, and one other thing, I usually, whenever I do a search, I like to limit my search to 2 or 3 words or phrases. We could have done Merry Wives of Windsor and feminism and Shakespeare and Sir John Falstaff and, you know, listed all the characters. But the more terms you put up in this search bar here, the more you're narrowing it down to that one magical article that's got all of those words and phrases. And that article might not actually exist. So I limited this to Merry Wives of Windsor and feminism, and I truncated feminism. And now I'm going to do this search. This is the moment you've all been waiting for. Okay, so this is not ideal. I only got 2 articles here. I've got one from, wow, from spring of '85. That's not ideal. I've got one here called Falstaff's Horns, Masculine Inadequacy and the Feminine Mirth in the Merry Wives of Windsor. That article is available, PDF full text. If I click on PDF full text, I can view the article here. Hang on just a second. So I can view the article here. I can read this whole article. When the article is available, well, it's kind of askew here. When the article is available PDF full text, that's kind of really what we're looking for. I want to see an article that's got the whole thing and have it be formatted in the same way that it was formatted in the original publication. So the original publication is Studies in Philology. And this is exactly, if you had gotten the original journal, this is how it would appear. We can email this article to ourselves if we go over to email right here. And if we email the article to ourselves, one of the benefits of emailing the article is that we can then also send ourselves the citation here in APA, Chicago, MLA, whatever type of citation style our professor wants us to send this in, or to format this in, rather. So we can email this to ourselves and send ourselves the citation. So right now I'm going to go back to the result list. I'm going to do a search. Let me search for a different play. I'm going to search for a Midsummer Night's Dream. Midsummer Night's Dream, and I'm going to search for that and feminism. That should hopefully get us a few more results. That's a little bit more popular. Okay, this is what I was looking for. So again, some of these articles do have the full text. Well, they have linked full text. Linked full text will usually link us to the full text if it's available in one of the other Ebsco databases that we didn't cite. There's this one here, this #1 article, Use Me But As Your Spaniel. Now in this case, it doesn't actually have the full text of the article. What it does have is this thing called Full Text Finder that you'll see right here. Full Text Finder is designed to find this article if it's available in another database. It might not be available in any of the Ebsco databases, but apparently it is available someplace else. And the one thing that I want to call your attention to right here is this little green and blue logo right here. The reason I want to call your attention to that is because in the Ebsco databases, you'll always see that logo next to the words Full Text Finder, but in some of the other databases that we subscribe to, it will just have that circle, and you're supposed to magically know what that means. I don't know why they do that, but if you ever see that circle, that means that if you click on it, it should take you to the full text of this article, even though it's not available in that particular database that you're looking in. And this one looks like it's making us open the page in a new window. Okay, so there it is. Well, here's the abstract. Oh, and we do have access to the full text PDF, so we would have to click that, and here is finally the full article. So hopefully, did everybody see how I did that? I went to this article. It didn't have the full text, but they did have something called Full Text Finder. So I clicked on that, and it was able to take me to the full article. Now, the smart thing about Full Text Finder is that if the article is not available in any of the databases that we subscribe to, well, then Full Text Finder is just not going to show up. So this #3 article here, A Midsummer Night's Dream at the Millennium, Performance and Adaptation. So unfortunately, this article is not available in any of the databases that we subscribe to. So in this case, we're out of luck. But you shouldn't panic because you can still get that article through interlibrary loan. So you would have to go back to the home page and under Services, check out interlibrary loan, and they should be able to get the article to you in a few weeks. One of the new things that I'm seeing a lot in the Ebsco databases is that they have this thing called Plum X Metrics. It's this little purple pinwheel right here. If you hover over the little purple pinwheel, it will tell you how many times people have viewed the abstract or linked out to the article or use it in citation indexes. It will even tell you if anybody has tweeted about this article on social media. Usually the people who have tweeted about the article are the author and the author's mother, but so PlumX metrics can be kind of helpful to you. It can kind of give you an idea of how well traveled the article is, how many people have cited that article for their own purposes. So another thing that I wanted to mention is that when you're looking through all these results here, sometimes you're not finding exactly what you're looking for. Now, in this case, there's only 6 of them, so we don't really have a lot to choose from. But as long as you can find an article that's in the right ballpark, something that you can kind of work with, it's always a good idea to look under these subject headings. So this lists different subjects for this article. So let's say that most of these articles are not good for our research, but this first one is pretty good. So we searched for A Midsummer Night's Dream and feminism, and we truncated feminism. But then when we look at this article here, it's got feminist literary criticism, sure. It's also got gender roles. So maybe we want to plug that term into our search instead of just feminism. We want to plug in gender. We could have even done gender roles and put that in quotations, again, because it's a multi-word phrase. I'm just going to do gender, and I'm going to leave that asterisk there so that it accounts for the word gender as well as genders, like the singular and the plural. And the subject lines can usually give you, the subject headings, I should say, can usually give you a better idea of how Ebsco thinks or how that database thinks. The people who catalog this article into the database will use different words and phrases than what we would use in our search. So it's always good to mine this area for other new words and phrases. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to take gender with the asterisk. I'm going to do a search. Hopefully, so now we have 12 articles. So this is even better. Unfortunately, the first and the third, it seems like those are not available full text. But as we go down the list, we have other databases that are available full text. So that's great. There's this number 7 article here, Bottom's Wife, Gender and Voice in Hoffman's Dream. This one is available as a PDF full text. It's also available as HTML full text. Now, when you look at HTML full text, this is a little bit different than PDF. It doesn't have the article formatted in the pretty way that it would have appeared in the original publication, but it does have all of the words from that article. So this is the full article here. You're not missing anything. This is still all of the text of that article, and it will usually include any graphs or charts or images that appeared in the original article as well. But the thing that I do love about HTML full text, and sadly this is not available in PDF full text, the thing that I do love about HTML full text is that you can then have the article read to you in an American, Australian, or British accent. So we can click on that and it will begin to read the article to us.
Midsummer Night's Dream, 1999. Director Michael Hoffman characterizes Shakespeare's play as like a magic mirror.
So that will read the article to you. You can get stuff done around your house maybe as you have the article read to you. There's also a way here that we can download the MP3 of this article if we want to listen to it in your car, if you're not afraid of falling asleep behind the wheel. I'm just kidding. I'm sure it's fascinating. But that's only available when the article is in HTML full text format. But some of you might prefer that. So here's other articles as well. Again, if these articles are not good enough for us, we can always mine the subject headings for other articles. Okay. So that's the Academic Search Premier database available through Ebsco. Most of the other databases are very similar. They usually have some kind of search bar, and you can use the same search techniques here. You can, anytime you have a multi-word phrase, you can put it in quotes. Anytime you have a word that has multiple variations. You can truncate that word using the asterisk. And you should definitely try them all out. I believe Ebsco is thus far the biggest database that we have. We also subscribe to one called ProQuest. ProQuest is an excellent database. I said before, I'd like to think of Ebsco as a big corporate empire of library databases. If you think of Ebsco as being the Coca-Cola of databases, ProQuest is Pepsi. They're like the second biggest empire of corporate databases. So if you don't find anything in Ebsco, it's a good idea to also check out ProQuest, especially ProQuest Central. It's a multidisciplinary database. Again, it covers a little bit of everything. So are there any questions about the databases? I'm just going to close some of these tabs right now. Any questions about the databases? Okay, so I'm going to get out of the databases for right now. When we were back on the library homepage, you may have noticed that when I clicked on databases A to Z, right next to that is something called periodicals A to Z. You might be thinking, hey, if we're looking for articles, aren't those articles going to appear in periodicals? And you're absolutely right. But the periodicals A to Z, that's only really going to be helpful to you if you know specifically what periodical you're looking for. So if we're doing something on the plays of Shakespeare, maybe we're looking for something about Hamlet and you know, the role of death in Hamlet, and your best friend says to you, oh, you know what, there was a great article about, you know, the role of death in Hamlet in Shakespeare Quarterly for February of 2017, because our friends know these things off the top of our heads, naturally. And you think, okay, that's great, but where do I find Shakespeare Quarterly? Is it available in Ebsco? Maybe it's ProQuest. There's also another great database called JSTOR. But you don't want to go looking through all 251 of our databases just to find which one has the journal Shakespeare Quarterly. So you would go to periodicals A to Z. And periodicals A to Z gives you a search bar, but here you can only search for the name of the periodical, so only the name of the publication. You can't search for individual articles in here. You can only search for publications. So if I look up Shakespeare Quarterly, there it is, Shakespeare Quarterly comes up, and this will tell you which of our 251 databases have Shakespeare Quarterly. And we'll note here that it's available in Arts and Humanities database. There's JSTOR again, as I mentioned. Literature Online, Lion is a great database. That's owned by ProQuest now. Project Muse is a great database for the humanities, and there's ProQuest Central, as I mentioned. Now, as you're looking through these all have articles of Shakespeare Quarterly going right to the present, but most of these have a delay of 6 years to a year. The only exception to this is Project Muse, which has it going from 2001 all the way to the present. So if you want the more recent issues, your best bet is to go to Project Muse. A lot of publications will do that. They'll have what's called an embargo, which means that there'll be a delay in that particular database. They want people to actually go out and, you know, subscribe to these publications, so they won't allow any of the articles to be available online until after a year has passed, or 6 years in JSTOR's case. So if we go to the Project Muse database, they must have some special deal with Project Muse that allows them to have all of the most recent issues. So here are all the issues. We can go to let's go to summer of 2017, for example. And this might be, we might have even found this as a reference in one of the other articles. As we look through those articles that we found previously, maybe in one of those articles, the references page at the end of the article listed where that particular author got their information from. So we might be curious, we might decide we want to find out those original articles that were cited. So we can go to the periodicals list, we can search for, in this case, Shakespeare's Quarterly, and this has all of these articles that were available in Shakespeare Quarterly. So the periodicals list can also be very useful. Again, here's periodicals list. Periodicals list can also be useful if there's a magazine or a newspaper that you just like to read. If there's something that you have a subscription to, I don't know if, Cosmo or GQ or Sports Illustrated, I'm sure they might be available in one of the databases that we subscribe to. So it's always a good idea to try looking for one of those here and seeing if we have the access to the articles that would have appeared in that publication. That's always a possibility. So any questions about the periodicals list? No. Okay. Last thing I'm going to tell you about are the research guides. We have a list of research guides here, again, under the WorldCat Discovery panel on the library homepage, Library Learning Commons homepage. The research guides. These research guides, these are study guides that have been created by we, the librarians, to be like an overview of all of the topics taught at Kane and more. So if you've been listening to absolutely none of what I've been saying here today, please visit the research guides. They can be very helpful to you. And I'm just going to go to these research guides here. There's 73 subjects, so if there's a particular subject that you're interested in, you can go directly to that subject. I feel like I've spent a lot of time on Shakespeare. Let me go to, let's do education. And here are a list of all the education research guides that we have. There's 21 of them. Here are all of the different subjects. I'm going to go to the guide on early childhood education. So this gives us an overview of all of the resources that we have specifically to early childhood education. This guide was created by my colleague, Ms. Pitts. Her little profile is right here. If you click on it, that should have her contact information, I believe. So here we have Start Your Research Here. It has recommended online encyclopedia databases, tests and measurement, which would be useful if you're majoring in early childhood ed. We have a number of encyclopedias here that should be in our reference collection. Some of them are online encyclopedias, electronic resources, etc. And then as we go through these tabs here, as we explore these tabs, there's a tab here that will tell us how to find books, if we want to find specifically books on early childhood ed. And this leads us to several resources on how to find books. If we want to find articles, I really just told you about Ebsco's Academic Search Premier, and then I kind of mentioned ProQuest Central and JSTOR. But these are all of the databases that are perfect for education. There's the ERIC database again that I mentioned, which is really the best educational database. They've got, the ERIC database has articles from scholarly peer-reviewed journals on education. It also has a number of government documents from the U.S. Department of Education. So that's really valuable if you're doing research on any of those education fields. They also have a link here to the LearnTechLib database. Here are all of our Ebsco resources, childcare and early education. And here, this next tab, my colleague Ms. Pitts has put a link to children's literature and young adult literature. If you're developing a lesson plan for reading for younger readers for early childhood education, there are curriculum resources here. You can get early childhood lesson plan resources. There's a link here for New Jersey Education, which has a link to all the government sites on, New Jersey schools, data and statistics, education laws, etc. There's a tab here that will take you to links useful for using the Praxis exam. You education majors might find that helpful. And then there's a tab here on how to find websites, specifically for early childhood ed. The Find Websites tab, now, ordinarily we're not expected to use websites because anything that's free and available online, we just kind of assume that it was designed by, some guy in his parents' basement. But these websites have been evaluated by a librarian, in this case Ms. Pitts, to be reliable sources of information. So even though they're not necessarily peer-reviewed, this is not just like Bob's website on education. So we have Administration for Children and Families here, U.S. Code Title 20, College of Education Teaching Performance Center. Those are resources specifically through CANE. So whenever you go to the Find Websites, this will be a little bit more of a more evaluated list of resources for education, even though they are freely available on the web. Lastly, there's a tab here that will tell you how to cite sources, APA, Chicago, MLA, all of those fun things. And lastly, there's a tab that will tell you how you can get handouts on these resources. The handouts will just be a document that will have all of the resources that we have on this particular subject. So that's why the research guides are very helpful. They all kind of follow that format where they'll have how to find books, how to find articles, web resources, how to cite your sources, etc. So here's the occupational therapy one, for example, and it's very similar. They all kind of follow this same format. So again, if you haven't been listening to anything so far, please visit the research guides. They're right here on the home page. Okay, so are there any questions about anything that I've mentioned here today? No. This particular webinar is going to be available online. It's been being recorded. Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to see the chat window or the webcam in the final recording. It will just be a YouTube video, but it will have all of my instructions, and you will be able to see the screen as it's been changing during this particular webinar. Okay, so that's all I have for you. I hope that you've gotten a lot out of this. If you haven't, if you feel like you need more help, there are all sorts of ways to contact a librarian over here as well. And hey, please feel free to stop by the Nancy Thompson Library Learning Commons. We always love to see your smiling faces in our Library Learning Commons. Please feel free to visit us. Oh, and I'm being reminded in the chat there is a very brief webinar feedback survey available. This is the website. I'm going to click on it now just so it will show up. So this is the website. Hopefully you can see that. It's through Qualtrics. To let us know how you found this webinar and how useful you found it. So thank you all for attending, or for those of you that didn't attend, thank you for watching this on our Nancy Thompson Library Learning Commons YouTube channel. Hope to see you again. Hope to see you in a future webinar. And I hope you have a good day. It's really gorgeous out there. You should definitely get outside at some point and enjoy the nice weather. So there's my information again. Yeah. And yeah, thank you very much. Have a good one.